Fall asleep on the red line going towards 95th. Dude, I had a friend who was visiting, tourist, fall asleep on the 5 train going northbound, right? Going uptown. Falls asleep on the 5 train, wakes up, sends me a text and goes, I'm near, I think they said I'm near 125th Street. Should I get off? It was 3 a.m. I was like, no. I was like, go to the other platform. Come back down this way. But don't do it unless the other train's already waiting there. And she was like, yeah, I see it. And I was like, okay. Get there quick. Because this is at a time where 125th was not doing so hot. But you remember that period of time? I don't know if you guys remember this. There was a guy who was being reported in the news as always waiting at that station or like one north or one south of it with a ball-peen hammer. There was a guy with a ball-peen hammer who was just walking around with the hammer and just occasionally tried to hit someone in the back of the head with it, just out of nowhere. He was not well. And he would go to jail, but they couldn't keep him for too long because of certain like bail reform laws, right? So they would let him back out, and then he'd just buy another hammer and just sit around in the train station and just sit there mumbling to himself, and then occasionally try to attack someone again, right? This was the same time as those articles coming out on that guy, right? That's when she texted me, hey, I'm at 125th Street. I was like, oh, wait, Hammer Guy might be there. It was literally like at the peak of this news. Like everyone on Twitter was like, yep, just saw the Hammer Guy. He's there. He's here right now. They were like live tweeting his location. Oh my God. Scary times. People haven't seen him in a bit though. It's still no bueno. I mean, I don't think it's that bad. But that's just me. I don't know. I think that area is honestly like fine most of the time. Just look like you live there and you'll be fine, you know? Don't like stare at people and say hi to them. Don't walk down the street and be like, hey, how you doing? Just walk, you know? You'll be aight, man. I don't know. The amount of times a guy can't stay behind jail despite his history of crimes. Oh yeah, it was a huge thing. I don't know. Hammer Guy was funny though. I just remember reading the articles and it was so like it wasn't funny, but it was absurd, and the absurdity made it funny. You know what I mean? Like, it just... You would just read this article and be like, well, he's back out and he bought another hammer. And then people would be posting pictures of him and they're like, look, there he is. Like, he was a little cryptid. It was just... At the end of the day, you couldn't help but laugh, you know? It's just how it was. Like, how is that possible? Yeah, the absurdity is what's funny, right? You said we simply don't do past 35th. Anything after 95th is in God's hands. Yeah, it's, some spots are just interesting. They're just interesting. I don't know. But anything south of that, you're chilling. Anything on the green line, you're chilling, man. You're right. 110th Street and below. Easy. You've perfected the mean mug walk in New York. Yeah, you get used to it. You don't even have to mean mug. You just look like you live there. That's all, you know? That's it. The ball-peen cryptid. Yeah, do you guys have like, without doxing yourselves, obviously, but do you have like a local cryptid? Like just some guy who does something, just some sort of creature? I had one. It was a positive one. There was some old guy who would always walk around my neighborhood a long time ago, and he had this walking stick. But his walking stick looked like a wizard staff, right? It was like a hand-carved special walking stick, but he looked like Gandalf. And I would always call him Gandalf because I didn't know his name for a while, right? So in my head, I'd be like, oh, there's Gandalf again. And he would walk at the same time every day. And he'd walk with his walking stick. And he was sort of power walking, right? He was walking at a fast pace. And he'd be like moving the stick in a way where it almost looked like a drum major when he was walking, you know? And I loved that. I started going out there and saying hi to him and like asked him his name, whatever. And we became friends. He was an old guy. He was in his 70s and he was just power walking with his stick and he looked like Gandalf. It was great. Did you call him Gandalf to his face? I told him, you know, I never knew your name, so I would always tell my brothers that, like, oh, Gandalf is here because you look like Gandalf. I said that, and he was like, oh, I love those movies. Love the books. So the town you grew up in, there was the clown house where this dude would put on a clown wig and makeup and stand in front of his window naked. Oh, that's great. Tell me more. What do you mean he would stand in front of his window naked with clown makeup? That's a good one. That's an actual cryptid. Oh man. I had I knew one guy, there was one guy that I would see on the train all the time that would hang upside down from the top bar on the subway. So he would grab onto it like he was about to do a pull-up and put his legs over the bar. So like the bar was in like his knees, right? And then he'd fold his arms and he'd hang upside down. And he'd just do that until he got to his stop. Now he wouldn't do it if there were a shit ton of people around, but if the train was a little more empty, he'd do that. And not me, one guy one time was just like, "Why do you always do that?" And he was like, it honestly, because it decompresses my back." He was like, "I just want to decompress my spine." And everyone was like, valid. Because he didn't do it when there were a fuck ton of people. He only did it like at the end of the train in this one spot when like not that many people were around. Like he wouldn't do that, you know, if there were a bunch of people in his way and everything. So he wasn't really being disruptive with it. Obviously you would notice it, so it might be a little mentally disruptive, but like he wasn't physically disruptive, you know? And there are plenty of times where I saw him on the train and there were a lot of people around. It was more of like a rush hour kind of thing, and he didn't do that, you know? So we were always like, what is with that? And yeah, he just wanted to decompress his spine. And I was like, all right. Like no one complained because he wasn't being an asshole about it, and he didn't like look at people while he did it. He didn't stare you in the eyes and be like, notice me doing the thing and ask me about it, you know? Like he just, you know, bing bong. Yeah, bing bong. Oh, that's my stop. And then he'd get off. So calm. And it was fine. It was fine. Yeah, showtime. Yeah. You go on the subway and you hear showtime. I groan. I groan every time. I can't, dude. I can't. Said, you live in a small village. Crazy people are so uncommon, good but also boring. Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel, right? I like the crazy shit. It's nice. It's interesting. As long as I'm not, like, getting hit. Which happens sometimes, you know? Sometimes someone goes, showtime, in the subway and does a backflip and they, like, kick someone in the head. You know? Sometimes they do a backflip and their shoe, like, flings off and just, like, hits you in the leg and you're like, oh, that happened to me. I was like, what the fuck? I was just sitting there with, like, my AirPods in, you know, just listening to music, and I just had a shoe, like, flung at me, and the guy was like, oh. It didn't say sorry. He just picked it up and kept going. And I was like, oh, okay. Fuck, man. Whatever. Whatever.